On a stormy night in the Demon Lord's castle, the ruler summoned his 4 generals: Ermender, the flaming Gat; Sylphid, the storm conjurer; Jinnum, the edgy emo knight; and an unexpected newcomer, the guardian deity of water summoned from another realm. To everyone's shock, the chosen one was an average loser, smelly Salaryman, Uchimura. Uchimura's life had been far from extraordinary. After graduating, he tirelessly job-hunted until landing a position. Despite his efforts, his boss dismissed him as a failure, just like how your parents viewed you. Though Uchimura was sent abroad to oversee the construction of a factory, a daunting task he managed to complete despite being overwhelmed. Yet, instead of recognition, he was given another challenging project. Exhausted and disheartened, Uchimura found himself sitting by the roadside, sighing deeply, until his ticket to a new life accident catapulted him into this new world. Unlike the typical isekai hero welcomed by goddesses or priests, Uchimura landed directly in front of the Demon Lord, who stood there menacingly. The Demon Lord wasted no time explaining his purpose. He wanted Uchimura to serve as one of the big 4 generals in his army, even giving him the title of overseas expatriate. Uchimura was baffled as to why the Demon Lord chose someone like him when there were clearly better options. The Demon Lord, however, revealed that he had conducted an extensive background check and was impressed by Uchimura's unacknowledged achievements and relentless work ethic. While flattered by the recognition, Uchimura still hesitated to join. The Demon Lord sweetened the offer with enticing perks: a generous salary, the authority of a company director, the freedom to assemble his own team, and some snow demon cheeks to clap. As a final assurance, he promised that if Uchimura refused, he would safely return him to his world, even though he would be presumed dead. Touched by this unexpected respect, Uchimura was tempted but doubted his worthiness due to his past. Sensing his hesitation, the Demon Lord dismissed Earth's critics as fools who failed to value hard work. Rising from his throne, he passionately declared his intention to help Uchimura unlock his full potential, promising they would achieve greatness together. Before Uchimura could respond, Ermender interrupted, voicing doubts about a mere human serving as a general. Sylphid and Jinnum echoed her concerns. To settle the matter, the Demon Lord proposed a test to prove Uchimura's value. Disregarding orders, Ermender attacked Uchimura with overwhelming power, knocking him unconscious. The Demon Lord intervened, clarifying that Uchimura's strength lay in his intellect, not physical prowess. He revealed his plan to unite nearby races, such as salamanders and werewolves, but lacked skilled negotiators for the task. To test Uchimura, he assigned him to persuade the Minotaurs to join the demon army. Reluctantly, Uchimura prepared for the mission, accompanied by Ermender. Along the way, she mocked him relentlessly, calling him slow and feeble. Though intimidated, Uchimura recalled the Demon Lord's words and resolved to prove himself. When they reached the Minotaur chief's chamber, the massive doors alone nearly shattered Uchimura's resolve. Ermender teased him, warning of the Minotaur's aggression, but opened the doors herself. Summoning his courage, Uchimura entered only to be greeted by the sight of no other than her glorious mother. Ermender stepped forward, claiming she could handle the negotiation. However, her confidence quickly unraveled into chaos as her brash approach turned the discussion into a heated argument. The chief, Lord Talius, eventually threw them out. Ermender tried to save face, insisting her strategy was effective and that Talius simply refused their terms. Exhausted but undeterred, Uchimura decided it was up to him to prove his worth and succeed where others had failed. Hearing the Minotaur chief's angry grumbles, Uchimura decided to withdraw temporarily and return later with a plan. Haunted by the intimidating image of Talius, Uchimura struggled to focus. At a nearby bar, memories of his Salaryman days surfaced. Clients who repeatedly said no but eventually agreed after persistent efforts. Inspired, he finished his drink, resolved to approach Talius again with a fresh strategy. Meanwhile, Ermender reported Uchimura's supposed failure to the Demon Lord, who urged patience. Skeptical, she hurried back to Talius' chamber, where she found Uchimura holding a sack of hay he referred to as trash. Confused, she asked about his intentions, but he explained that the hay was crucial for his next discussion with Talius. When she dismissed his idea, warning that Talius was impossible to negotiate with, Uchimura calmly reassured her. He explained that negotiation isn't about overpowering a client, but about bridging the cognitive gap between both parties. He emphasized the importance of building trust, starting with direct communication and eye contact. Despite Ermender's doubts, Uchimura entered Talius' chamber with confidence, hand in hand, promising to make things work. Seeing his newfound determination, Ermender realized he was no longer the timid, self-doubting man she had first met. The next morning, Ermender stormed into Talius' chamber after hearing no updates all night. Inside, she found hay scattered everywhere and assumed Uchimura's negotiations had taken place. To her surprise, Uchimura revealed that Talius had gone to meet the demon lord to finalize their alliance. Shocked, she demanded to know how he achieved this so quickly. Uchimura explained that Talius had always been open to negotiations, but is secretly at Sunday rejecting offers to test Erminder's resilience. Her impatience and tendency to storm off had led her to believe negotiations had failed each time. Uchimura, however, had taken a different approach. He spent the night understanding Talia's concerns and using calm, persistent dialogue to build trust and find common ground. Later, Talius and the demon lord returned, confirming the alliance. Talius apologized for his earlier hostility and praised Uchimura's skillful handling of the negotiations. Offering a firm handshake, he expressed his gratitude. Impressed, the demon lord declared Uchimura's test a success and officially appointed him as one of the Big Four generals. As a symbol of his new position, the demon lord gave Uchimura a golden bracelet, marking the beginning of his role as the kingdom's overseas envoy. Though Erminder still harbored doubts about Uchimura's abilities, she begrudgingly acknowledged his achievement. With many negotiations ahead, the two set off together. Watching their budding teamwork, the demon lord felt hopeful that Uchimura and his generals would bring his army closer to its ultimate potential. Uchimura is beginning to adjust to his role as a demon general. It's nice to have his own office and a supportive superior, but this place still feels unfamiliar. Since he's now officially one of the generals, he decides to introduce himself to the others. He heads to Sylphid's room, knocks, and is surprised when a girl answers. She introduces herself as Sylphid's assistant and informs him that Sylphid is too busy to meet. Though disappointed, Uchimura understands and plans to try again later. Before he can leave, Erminder approaches with urgent news. The demon lord has a task for him. The demon lord wants Uchimura to help secure support from nearby demi-human nations to strengthen the demon army. Among them, the Ogre tribe is key, as their military power rivals that of the demon army. The demon lord aims to negotiate an alliance, but the ogres are known to be tough negotiators. However, with Uchimura handling the situation, the demon lord is confident an agreement will be reached and grants him full authority on the matter. Erminder offers to accompany him to the Ogre tribe. However, Uchimura insists on meeting Jinum first, as she leads the demi-human division and may have useful information about the ogres. Erminder agrees but refuses to approach Jinum due to a long-standing grudge, instead offering to check on the carriages while Uchimura speaks with her. He then heads to the training grounds, where Jinum is overseeing a session. There, Uchimura is impressed by the combat skills and high morale of her men. After the training, Uchimura asks about the Ogre tribe, but she reveals she doesn't know much, only that their leader, Ogre, is difficult to communicate with, making negotiations challenging. She offers no further help, stating she'd never work with Erminder, and asks Uchimura to leave. As he turns to leave, Uchimura is surprised to see Erminder behind him and questions why she's there and why she's upset. Erminder explains she came to check on him after finishing with the carriages but can't hold back her frustration on seeing Jinum. Eventually, Uchimura and Erminder reach the ogre's castle but are stopped at the gate and told to wait for permission to enter. Erminder finds it absurd that they are kept outside so long, but Uchimura, familiar with this tactic, explains that Ogre is trying to throw them off and disrupt negotiations. Erminder struggles to hold her temper, but before she acts, Ogre's assistant arrives and allows them inside. As they enter, Uchimura notices how worn the Ogre's armor looks. In the throne room, Erminder begins to speak, but Ogre interrupts, dismissing them. He declares he won't listen unless they surrender, demanding they kill their leader, the demon lord, as part of the deal. Erminder is furious and ready to explode, but Uchimura grabs her hand, urging her to stay calm. He explains that Ogre is baiting them and that reacting angrily would play into his hands. Uchimura politely informs Ogre that they'll step outside for a brief conversation. Outside, Erminder vents her frustration, cursing Ogre, but Uchimura reassures her that they must stay composed. Ogre's provocation is a tactic to avoid negotiations while blaming the failure on them. Now that she understands Ogre's intentions, Erminder tries to calm herself, though she remains upset by his insult to the demon lord. Suddenly, the Ogre's daughter, Oral, appears and introduces herself. She asks for their help in confronting her father and leads them to an empty room. There, she explains the Ogre tribe's dire situation. Their influence and strength among the demi-humans are fading, and many are struggling to find food. But Uchimura and Erminder had already sensed something was wrong from the Ogre's worn equipment and the cold atmosphere in the castle. Oral then reveals that Ogre is ill and his condition is worsening. If he dies under these circumstances, it could spell the end for the tribe. Desperate, she asks Uchimura for help. Though sympathetic, Uchimura scolds her for revealing such critical information so easily. As the chief's daughter, she must be cautious about whom she trusts. Oral insists she trusts Uchimura's character and then makes a shocking request. She asks him to marry her to save the tribe. Uchimura is stunned while Erminder fumes with anger. Oral, however, is serious. She believes that marrying someone as capable as Uchimura is the only way to secure the tribe's future. Uchimura tries to dissuade her, but Oral is determined, even offering to marry him immediately. Erminder firmly stops her. That night, Uchimura reflects on how to navigate the precarious situation. The ogres refuse to negotiate and the pressure is mounting. To clear his mind, he decides to visit a bar. Uchimura sat alone, observing as an imagined version of Erminder argue with the bartender over whether gorillas or lions were cooler. While Uchimura knew a gorilla would easily defeat a lion, Erminder insisted lions were superior because their group is called a pride. The debate snapped Uchimura out of his trance, and he devised a clever plan. The next morning, Uchimura woke Erminder early, apologized for the previous day, and asked for her help with a negotiation. Their first stop was crucial. If successful, it would lead Ogre to request a meeting. A week later, Uchimura and Erminder were summoned to the chief's throne room. As anticipated, Ogre was enraged upon learning that the other tribes had allied with the demon army. A week earlier, Uchimura had shared his strategy with Erminder. Instead of trying to convince the Ogre tribe directly, they would recruit smaller tribes. These tribes, struggling with food shortages, could be swayed with offers of support. Erminder doubted the plan's success, but it worked remarkably well. Uchimura had adapted a tactic he used back on Earth, targeting smaller companies to create demand from larger ones who wouldn't want to be left behind. The alliance between the surrounding demi-humans and the demon army triggered a reaction from Ogre. But Uchimura played the situation carefully, claiming the alliance with smaller groups was purely to aid them in their struggles. This enraged Ogre further, as he hadn't authorized any negotiations. Everything was unfolding as Uchimura planned. Ogre's anger made him easier to manipulate. To escalate matters, Uchimura subtly hinted that the alliances weren't his idea alone and mentioned Oral's involvement. Shocked by his daughter's actions, Ogre confronted her, but Oral explained it was necessary for the tribe's survival. The changing times, coupled with Ogre's age and declining health, demanded adaptation. Uchimura then proposed an alternative, a partnership instead of full allegiance to the demon army. Though it was a bluff, framing it as an equal arrangement appealed to the chief's pride. Ogre requested time to consider, and a few days later, Oral informed Uchimura that her father had agreed to the alliance. While Uchimura was pleased with the outcome, he had another task from the demon lord, choosing an assistant. He considered Erminder, but she misunderstood and became awkward around him. Meanwhile, Oral, grateful for his help in improving her father's diplomacy, offered to be his assistant. Seizing the opportunity, Uchimura accepted, which Oral eagerly agreed to. However, Erminder grew jealous and refused to acknowledge Uchimura, leaving him baffled by her behavior. Oral visits Uchimura in his office to report that the negotiation with the Bearman tribe was successful. She also informs him about an upcoming awards ceremony where he will be recognized for his contributions to the demon army's growth. Uchimura, who has never received an award before, expresses excitement about the occasion. Later, Erminder visits him, bringing along porridge, a staple food of demons. Uchimura finds the porridge bland and mentions his craving for meat. Hearing this, Erminder suggests they go hunting together. She also reveals that they have received a request to eliminate a dangerous magical beast that has killed 5 demi-humans. The orcs had attempted to deal with it but found it too strong, prompting them to seek the demon army's assistance. As they search, Erminder points out some mushrooms and explains that the orcs were attacked while trying to gather them. Suddenly, the beast appears behind them, startling Uchimura. Erminder assures him that she'll handle it. She delivers a powerful kick to the beast, but it quickly recovers and charges at her. Dodging its attack, she begins to pummel it, but Uchimura observes that her strikes lack the killing power needed to defeat it. He considers that she might need a weapon, but instead, Erminder decides to unleash her full strength. Her gauntlet transforms, and she warns that it will take time for her magic to recover afterward, but she believes this is the only way to defeat the beast. As it charges again, she grabs its tusks, twists its body, and kills it instantly. They bring the beast's remains to the orcs, who celebrate its defeat. One of the orcs offers Erminder the beast's leg, and Uchimura asks if she can cook it. She confidently says she can, planning to grill it over the fire. Expecting a well-prepared steak, Uchimura is shocked when she simply blasts the meat with her flames and declares it ready. Despite his skepticism, he tries the burnt meat and finds it nearly inedible. Spotting an oven nearby, Uchimura asks about it, but Erminder explains that it's expensive and resources like salt are scarce, making proper cooking a challenge. Undeterred, Uchimura decides to use the oven to cook the meat himself. Once prepared, he serves it to everyone, and they are amazed by how delicious it tastes. He offers to teach them how to cook properly, but Erminder warns that this could lower the status of the Big Four. Uchimura counters by explaining that a civilization's development can be measured by its dietary practices. He notes that the orcs' lack of culinary knowledge reflects their resource scarcity. Hermander agrees with his assessment, acknowledging that their country is weaker than the surrounding nations and that changes are necessary. Later that evening, as they prepare to return, Hermander conjures a fireball to light their path and keep wild beasts at bay. She mentions that demi-humans are unable to use magic, which makes Uchimura wonder if Sylphid is a demon or a demi-human. Hermander explains that she isn't certain because Sylphid never attends their meetings, but she assumes he's a demon since he can use magic. As they move forward, Uchimura brings up her recent battle with the magical beast, pointing out that she struggled due to a lack of proper equipment. He acknowledges that her magic takes time to recover and suggests she use weapons or wear armor instead of light clothing. Hermander becomes visibly upset and reveals that she finds his remarks insulting. Frustrated, she tells him to wait for the orcs to escort him back, explaining that his focus on efficiency clashes with demon culture. Before he can respond, she leaps away, leaving him wondering why she's angry. As he considers following her, the sound of wild beasts in the forest convinces him to retreat to the orc village. The next day, Uchimura reports to the Demon King, who questions why he didn't return with Hermander. Uchimura starts doubting his place among the Big Four, but the Demon King advises him to reconcile with her, believing it will broaden his perspective on the world. As Uchimura ponders Hermander's anger, he observes the city, noting the mix of demi-humans and demons. He becomes curious about why demons wear revealing outfits and remembers that they are the only ones capable of using magic. After some research, he learns that a muscular body is a symbol of pride for demons as they train their bodies to enhance their magical power. Their choice of revealing outfits reflects their desire to display their strength. Realizing this, Uchimura understands that his suggestion for Hermander to wear armor was offensive because it implied she should hide her body. Meanwhile, Hermander runs into Oral, who's chopping wood. She confides in Oral, worrying that Uchimura dislikes her because he didn't compliment her physique. Oral reassures her, pointing out that Uchimura doesn't think like demons and might have even misunderstood her outfit. She advises Hermander not to worry as Uchimura is a good person at heart. Later, Uchimura, enjoying a meal at the bar, compliments the bartender's cooking. As he sees the bartender smile at the praise, he has an epiphany. Rushing to find Hermander, he tells her she has an impressive physique. Hermander, thrilled by the compliment, admits she had always wanted him to acknowledge her body. However, the moment quickly turns awkward and Uchimura apologizes for offending her earlier. Hermander also apologizes for leaving him alone in the forest. Uchimura expresses his desire for her to be his partner, which flusters her as she interprets it as a romantic confession. However, it's revealed that he simply wants to continue working alongside her. At the awarding ceremony, the Demon King commends Uchimura for his successful negotiations with other races and presents him with a magic stone as a reward. Uchimura, however, insists that Hermander deserves it and offers it to her. Shocked, she misinterprets the gesture as a public proposal and scolds him for doing so in front of everyone. Meanwhile, Belinda, observing from a distance, realizes that the demons have finally come to respect Uchimura. Despite the praise and recognition Uchimura received, when he met his boss again, he knelt and pleaded for another chance, fearing he had overlooked something. The Demon King responded that Uchimura's real problem was his inability to acknowledge his own success and his lack of confidence. Changing the subject, the Demon King turned to the Foreign Affairs manager, asking for his opinion on the relationship between demons and demi-humans. The manager pointed out that the core issue was the disparity in abilities. Demons had an advantage in society due to their magic, leaving demi-humans marginalized. The Demon King agreed, noting that only a few races could wield magic, which was precisely why Uchimura was needed. His task was to find a way to grant magic to everyone, reducing inequality. Grateful for the opportunity, Uchimura remembered that while he lacked magic himself, the Demon King had entrusted him with a magic stone to study, with the help of Sylphid, the Storm Archmage. However, he had been warned that Sylphid could be difficult to work with. After the meeting, Uchimura left and ran into Hermander, who was snooping around and assumed his task was progressing well. Determined, Uchimura continued his research on how to harness the artifact's immense power. Meanwhile, Oral brought him tea, noticing how exhausted he looked from his extra workload. She suggested he leave early to avoid burnout, but Uchimura assured her he was just finishing up. He then asked her if demi-humans could gain magic like demons. She confirmed it was possible, but it required innate talent. The magic stone alone wouldn't be enough. Realizing he needed deeper knowledge, he decided to seek out Sylphid directly. Summoning his resolve, he made his way to the Archmage's quarters, but was met by his assistant, Belinda, who didn't recognize him at first. Embarrassed, she recalled their previous conversation and apologized for not recognizing a high-ranking officer. However, she informed him that Sylphid was absent. Uchimura protested, reminding her they had a scheduled meeting, but she stood firm, promising to notify him once Sylphid returned. As she attempted to shut the door, he blocked it with his foot, insisting they talk immediately. Meanwhile, Herminder continued watching from afar, irritated at the sight of Uchimura entering another woman's room. Belinda, growing impatient, urged him to be quick as she had other responsibilities. Wasting no time, Uchimura confronted her directly, stating that he suspected she was actually Sylphid. He backed up his claim with 3 reasons. First, she wore glasses, which was unusual for demons known for their exceptional physical abilities, suggesting they were merely for show. Second, there was no Belinda listed in the demon army's records. Third, their boss had warned him that Sylphid might disguise himself to avoid work. Cornered, Belinda finally admitted the truth. She was indeed one of the 4 generals. Uchimura then asked why he was hiding and dressing as a woman. Sylphid explained that in his true form, people constantly bombarded him with work. Plus, he had no interest in collaborating with humans, even under orders, since he had already dealt with a troublesome magic stone before and had no desire to do so again. However, since Uchimura had seen through his disguise, Sylphid decided to humor him. He placed a device on the table, its base made of a black mineral that conducted magic efficiently, embedded with yellow stones that allowed various spells. Sylphid had spent years developing it. Uchimura was eager to mass-produce it, but Sylphid warned him that each unit cost 10 million due to the rarity of magic stones. His final advice? Just give up. There was no feasible solution. Refusing to accept defeat, Uchimura devised a plan to outmaneuver the cunning mage. He realized costs could be drastically reduced by using a single magic stone instead of multiple ones, even if it meant the device could only cast 1 spell instead of several. The concept intrigued Sylphid, as it mirrored a strategy Uchimura had seen in his own world, where companies would remove features to create a cheaper version of a product. Sylphid agreed that simplifying the design would make the device more affordable, noting that no one had thought of it before. Seizing the opportunity, Uchimura handed his magic stone to the mage, requesting a prototype. Rising to the challenge, the Storm Archmage revealed a hidden workshop and declared that he would work through the night, dragging Uchimura along as his assistant. Meanwhile, outside, impatient and bored Ermander pounded on Sylphid's door, demanding someone open it. By morning, Uchimura was completely drained, while Sylphid beamed with pride at their success. He named the new invention Rosmarin, a single-spell magic stone now viable for mass production. Despite the sleepless night, the mage was eager to test it, volunteering Uchimura as the first subject. Barely functioning, Uchimura begged for a break, and Sylphid generously granted him exactly 1 hour. Exhausted, Uchimura dragged himself toward the door, desperate for a quick meal and some rest. Before he could leave, Ermander suddenly burst in, demanding to know why he had spent the night there. Her plan to interrogate him backfired. Just then, Sylphid, now clad in full Archmage robes and speaking in a deep, authoritative voice, commanded Ermander to take her chaos outside. Confused, she demanded to know where the woman had gone, but Sylphid insisted that it was just him and Uchimura. Amid the commotion, Lilim and Oral rushed in, calling for Ermander and Uchimura. A massive flock of enraged birds was attacking nearby villages, and the Demon King had ordered them to respond. Ermander was assigned to protect 3 villages, while Sylphid saw this as the perfect opportunity to test Rosmarin. Taking the new device to an open field, the mage prepared for a live trial. As some curious villagers wandered too close, Uchimura warned them to step back. Sylphid then handed him a Rosmarin stone and instructed him to summon a fireball. Though nervous, Uchimura obeyed, imagining the stone as an extension of himself, his energy flowing into it. To his amazement, he successfully conjured a fireball, just in time for the massive birds to descend upon the field. He launched several fireballs to fend them off, but when a bird attacked at close range, the device failed. Sylphid quickly pushed the creatures back with magic, giving Uchimura another chance to use the stone. However, it still refused to activate. After driving off the first wave, Sylphid concluded that Rosmarin couldn't handle the intensity of battle and deemed the experiment a failure. Later, the generals gathered in a tent with the village residents. As they discussed the attack, Ermander offhandedly remarked that the demi-humans seemed fragile. In response, Sylphid removed her helmet, revealing her face, and explained that while the villagers were weak and lived in poverty, they remained kind and joyful. This reminded her of why she had first begun developing magical devices. Born into a merchant elf family, she had left home and was later taken in by demi-humans who welcomed her into their struggling village. There no one could use magic, and everyone lived in hardship. Determined to help, she started working on magical devices, but eventually lost sight of her original goal. Looking at Uchimura, she reaffirmed that it was a scientist's duty to advance society, and making Rosmarin work was now a matter of honor. She also warned that the birds would likely return soon, making it urgent to fix the device. Determined to find a solution, Uchimura later found himself in his imaginary bar, where Erminder was happily eating cooked entrails. Reflecting on how food once considered waste was now valuable, he had an idea. Instead of using rosmarin for direct attacks, he realized the birds were sensitive to high-pitched sounds. The next time the flock appeared, he set 10 rosmarin stones on the ground and activated them, using minimal magic to produce a deterrent frequency. The strategy worked, driving the birds away without direct combat. A few days later, back at the castle, Uchimura reported to the Demon King that the new device could repel monsters without casting spells. Cheap and effective, it was an ideal tool for village defense. Impressed, the king ordered mass production for rural settlements. After the meeting, Uchimura thanked Sylphid for her help, but she insisted that she should be the one thanking him for restoring her sense of purpose. As a reward, she gifted him a combat magic device capable of firing 30 shots. Surprised, he asked when she had created it, and she simply replied, "I'm a genius after all." Eager to return to work, Uchimura barely had a moment to relax before Erminder burst in, frustrated that he hadn't kept her updated. She accused him of flirting with yet another woman.